We were watching agents and they were highly efficient at this really bad process. And they had about 17 tabs open, alt-tabbing really quickly to go around all these different applications that they were using. Like, this is crazy. I'm like, what are you doing? And they said, oh, we've learnt how to do this really, really quickly. And it's like, well, what if you didn't have to do that quickly? What if we could all bring that together? Data would have shown us that people were in our product maybe not doing anything, but unless we'd actually been there visually observing, we wouldn't have seen this whole other world of what they were trying to do outside of our product.
We acknowledge the Gayamagal people, the traditional owners of the land on which we record this podcast. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. The best career advice won't come from an AI prompt. It comes from the people who've lived it. Welcome to Tech Careers Hotline, brought to you by the Tech Council of Australia. I'm your host, Adair Robbins, and this is a podcast for anybody who's curious about a career in tech. We put real questions from real people to the leaders and builders of tomorrow. Let's begin. Picture a support agent on a call with an angry customer, flipping between 17 open tabs just to find one answer. That's the problem Hannah Deveney set out to fix. In this episode, she takes us from her parents' science-filled dinner table to life as a senior product leader at Zendesk. This is Tech Careers Hotline. Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Adair. Thank you for having me.
So delighted to have you. Let's start right at the beginning. Take us back to when you were a kid. Was there anything that pointed towards where you would end up today?
One of my earliest memories of growing up, and when I think about what really helped form my career and my passion for learning, was both of my parents were scientists. So my father was a professor of biochemistry and my mother was a physics teacher. And we would have dinner around the table every night, and the conversations were around molecular biology or the latest advancements in physics. So I think growing up, like everyone around me, my sister, my parents' friends, everyone was around science. So I think that really gave me an interest around what was happening in the scientific field because I was just always around it. That really set a really strong basis for why I was so interested in science and technology as things developed. The other thing that I think about is I had a really big passion for sport. I played at school, I think 14 different sports. Wow. I've played field hockey for like over 25 years and now soccer. I think sport and having a leadership position in sport was something really big that kind of came through as I was starting my career and went side by side as I went through. So I think that had more of that on the more leadership side. That was a big part of what I think crafted that part of my career.
How did you get into tech from that kind of very traditional science background through to where you are now?
I loved maths and I always wanted to work in computers. I think back then computers were very different, right? They were black and green screens. There wasn't as much you could do, but I was always interested, I think, how things worked. You know, had that more engineering mind, and I liked to see how things would come together, coupled with sort of my passion for mathematics. And I just knew that was something always I wanted to do. I did work experience at the University of New South Wales and I worked with the robotics team and the computer science faculty. And, you know, it was just sort of an itch that I always developed and worked in. Back to what I said before, my parents had always said, like, do not go into science in Australia. There's not a huge amount of money in that. But for me, I was like, well, I can see that computing is where the world's going. Like technology is taking off. And that was, I guess, where those natural steps went and progressed forward.
You've had such an incredible career. You've worked across so many different industries. What's been the through line for you?
Some people will stick to one industry their whole life. You know, they'll go into the financial services and they love that and they stay there. For me, I've worked in hospitality, with travel, with fashion, and now at Zendesk. And so there's so many different industries in there. Firstly, I need to love the product or the product space. You might not love the product when you first join somewhere, but you need to love the problem that you're solving or what you're doing for customers. You know, and some of them are a lot more relatable, like obviously travel and hospitality is a lot easier for us all to get excited about. But, you know, I think with what we're doing with customer service at the moment, like it's a very relatable space at Zendesk. We've all had both great and terrible experiences ringing up a brand and having experience there. So I think first and foremost, you have to love like what you do and who you're doing it for. So that would be the first piece. The second one is working with great people in every one of my career jumps, whether it's been a startup or a big company, I love working with great people who want to work together as a team. And I think that leverages like that sporting background I had. We're a greater sum of our parts working together. So having a company with great people with a strong culture, not just one that has core values up on the wall, but ones that actually live and breathe it. And then the third aspect I'd say is I like fast growth companies. At Zendesk, we've got huge aspirations and huge targets that we want to hit. That's been a common thread throughout all the companies I've worked at. Very goal oriented. We all work together, solving great problems to work on those customer problems. Less about a specific industry and more, I guess, those three aspects working together. And when I look back, that's been the pattern that I've seen.
You're a product manager, so a lot of people might not know what that is. How do you explain it to someone who's never worked in tech?
I didn't know what a product manager was before I actually had my first job and heard that there was a thing called a product manager. And I'm like, that sounds really cool because it's nearly a partnership between like engineering and the customer coming together. So you get the both sides of being very technical and very business. People often nickname it that you're the CEO of a product. So rather than being CEO of a company, you are the person in charge of everything to do with the product. So you need to design the strategy side that you're building a viable solution for your customers. You're building a viable solution for the business because it can't just be a good thing for customers. Like we want to make money as well, obviously, as going forward. And then last but not least, it's then actually delivering that. Like you've got to work with all the different people in the company. So the engineers, designers, marketing, legal, security, you name it. You're managing all these different stakeholders to bring that idea that you've had, that problem that you want to solve for customers and bring it through to delivery. And that's what a product manager does. You look after the whole gamut of that life cycle, which is really cool, right? Like you get to work with so many different people at different levels of strategic all the way down to the low level technical details. That's what the product manager role is to me.
You're really working across the business. You're partnering with so many different groups. And I can see how that sporting experience comes back to that as well, working as a team.
Yes.
So you're bringing that product from a customer problem all the way through to delivery and making sure that it really works for the business as well.
And one of the great things is actually working with customers, right? Like you're not successful in product if you're just working in your office or in your home office on your own. Some of the best ideas that we've had is actually by not even speaking to customers, but watching them in their environment, using the product, seeing what they're not using the product for. And that's where you've got to see that spark, that innovation, that ideation, and then bring that to your team back and then formulate how you're going to go and solve it. And one of the things that we love to do at Zendesk is work with our customers at every step of the journey. Gone are the days where you build something in isolation and then release it. So we like to really hold their hand and, work side by side with them through the software development lifecycle. So even sharing with them early prototypes, getting feedback, getting their input. And that leads to a better product that will make their life easier as well. And it will make us more successful.
Amazing. So let's look at one of these like real world examples of being a product manager in action. So take us back to the beginning of the pandemic. At the time, you were working for a company called Local Measure, and you were forced to rethink the entire product stack due to COVID-19. How did you manage that?
Yeah, look, it was an utterly bizarre time. And I think now in hindsight, we can look back and go, we did those things and that was good and maybe that wasn't so good. But when I try and go back to it, the thing that doesn't maybe seem obvious now is we didn't know that it was going to go on for months and years. Like we thought this might be, at first it was going to be 1 to 3 months, right? And so I think had we known that it was going to be years that transformed the world, we might have done things a bit differently at first. But we only had the information that we had at the time. So Local Measure was a company I worked for. We had a fantastic customer engagement platform and our key customers were physical venues. So think Accor hotels, Hilton, Disneyland, SCG and MCG, places where people went physically to go and have a good time or stay. And that was essentially what shut down overnight. And we were in a situation, me and my leadership team, of how do we survive this? Like this was a pure survival story. And at first we thought it was going to be a few months, but our customers weren't even answering the phones. Like they had all been put on standby. They weren't working. So there was no one paying the bills. There was no one to speak to. And we needed to think really seriously, what do we do to keep our company afloat and keep our people afloat too, right? And so what we did is And you have these flashbacks where there was literally 5 of us, our leadership team, in a boardroom during the pandemic early days. And we thought, what are we going to do? And we came up with the idea that we were going to do 3 experiments in order to pivot the company to make sure we had a product that was solving a customer need. And one of those ideas was to take our existing product, which was this customer engagement platform. And what we did is we thought this has potential legs because the world is changing. Everyone's now at home. All the agents, the people that answer the phone when you ring up with a problem, they're all at home. So very quickly we thought this is a way that we could pivot our product, leverage a lot of the existing technology, but build some more and re-platform on top of Amazon Connect to take a product to market that was very much a need, not a want. People needed contact center technology in order to run their businesses whilst everyone was at home. And as I said, we had 3 experiments. We split our team across them, and that's how our product at the time, which was called Engage, which is now Zendesk Contact Center, was born.
From that one moment with a whiteboard
yes.
in a boardroom.
And look, we did test the other 2 products and we killed them off pretty quickly because we knew we didn't have the resources to take 3 forward. But very quickly we got really good interest with the contact center platform, and that's where the product was born from. And I think that wasn't my first pivot in my career. There's been the Cambridge Analytica change with social media. There was the GFC. And I think great companies survive during the toughest times. It's actually a big opportunity. And whilst it can be terrifying and scary, working with a great team who are highly committed to solve this problem has really paid off. And
you talked about you had 3 ideas and you killed 2 off. Is
yes.
that a big part of being a product manager too? You test a product, it doesn't work, you have to move forward. Like, what's that experience like?
The term that they use is A/B testing, right? So how can you actually build different things and see what your customers like to use, and using data points to show you what's working well and what's not working well. You see it with even platforms like Facebook, right? They'll put out different features to different people and see what people like, see what they don't know how to use, see what works well and what doesn't. And that's essentially what we did. We had 3 experiments. It's like a 3-horse race. And we used data to measure both quantitative and qualitative in order to make a decision which would go forward with.
So in that sense, it's quite objective, isn't it? The data's telling you what what customers want. But I imagine too, when you've got like this idea and it's kind of like your baby and you put it out there and you say, okay, it's not really landing, it could be quite disappointing, but it's just about what the customer wants, right?
Absolutely. And it was interesting. There was one of our products, we launched it was in trial, and I remember saying to our marketing manager at the time, I said, we need to kill this product. And she's like, but we haven't done all the marketing, like we haven't gone to market. What if we get a few customers? I was like, well, that's my biggest fear. I don't want a couple of customers, like we want hundreds and thousands of customers. And if we get a few, we have to support that forever. And one of the many challenges product managers have, building the new product is exciting and it's innovative, and that's what we all live for. But there are products in the market that are older that you still have customers on and you have to support them, and that can take away your velocity. And so you need to really protect your innovation, protect your resources. You want your engineers and your product team on the biggest, most important challenges. So in that context, it was, we actually need to close this off really quickly. And that was what we were using the data for. It wasn't who was going to win. We needed to make sure that we didn't diversify too far and drain our resources across a product portfolio that was too lean.
Fascinating. I think that speaks to what you were saying before about the pace of working in a tech company and the scale. You're working on these really big problems that lots of users and customers are using. If anybody has ordered something online and maybe written back to customer service, you'll see that little line of powered by Zendesk.
Absolutely.
I've found that it's been great experiences. The product that you're building is like affecting people in their day to day.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And as I said before, there are some products you don't have that fast feedback loop from customers. But at Zendesk, we're really lucky that we work alongside them all the time, and we can all experience the Zendesk platform, right? So we are our users as well, which is a blessing, and it makes it even more exciting.
That's great. Let's talk about your role today. I read what you wrote about customer service agents who are toggling between dozens of different systems just to answer one question. Tell me about noticing that problem and then turning it into a product that solves it.
We did an immersion day at one of our customers to see what they were doing, because I think we all have bias, right? So if you ask me what my problem is, I'm going to tell you, but actually watching human behavior is really interesting. And we were watching this contact center and the agents, and they were highly efficient at this really bad process. And they had about 17 tabs open. I know we're all guilty of that on our computers. And they were in their contact center doing the work they needed to do. But then they were like alt-tabbing really quickly to go around all these different applications that they were using. So in order to see like the order status of something. And then there was another internal legacy system that they needed to see what was happening. And then they needed to go and look at Google Maps to see where the location was for something else as well. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, what are you doing? And they said, oh, we've learnt how to do this really, really quickly. And it's like, well, what if you didn't have to do that quickly? What if we could all bring that together? And our vision was really to have this portal, this agent experience that was a one-place shop that you could do everything in one place. And if you've ever been an agent or worked in a contact center, and one of the places I worked, we made sure that all the executives would spend 30 minutes a week actually on the phones listening in. It's incredibly stressful, right? Well, these agents are fantastic at what they do. And often customers are ringing you and they're not happy. And you're there trying to hold a conversation, try and find the data that you need as well, pivoting through all these different tabs. And that just doesn't make for a great employee experience. And it doesn't make a great customer experience, more importantly, as well. So from there, we made a product born to bring that functionality back into the agent workspace. And that was one of our measures. Like, how can we make sure that there is more usage of the platform and use that as one of our key sort of metrics to improve the product moving forward?
I love that story. That's a job that is incredibly stressful. And I think you have to be highly skilled to do that job.
Unless we'd actually been there visually observing what they were doing, we wouldn't have seen this whole other world of what they were trying to do outside of our product. So that's why I think, data obviously becoming so much more important in this AI world that we're in, but not just being channeled on one data set, like making sure that you're using different quantitative and qualitative data to really form those opinions is really important.
On that topic of data and AI is obviously changing so many jobs right now, including yours. What's that looking like day to day for you? And should people be worried or excited?
Change can be scary for people, right? This has been the biggest change since the internet that's affecting people's jobs. What I've seen in my career is different journeys where technology has exploded that can change companies and it can change roles. And part of our job in technology, regardless of what's happening, is always to keep learning, right? So even the coding languages of 20 years ago probably don't exist today and definitely won't exist into the future. So it's our responsibility when we're working in technology to always be learning and always to be upskilling. Interesting tidbit, when I was at university, in my first year of computer science, we learned on this coding language called Blue. And it was a learning language. It wasn't, my friends were learning Java and C and C++. They're like, Hannah, what are you learning? I'm like, well, I'm learning Blue. And it was interesting because it nearly didn't matter what the syntax was or what the coding language you were learning. It was learning how to learn and apply something you've learned to solve a problem. And I think that's what we're seeing with AI. The barriers have rapidly reduced. So lots of people who might not have been able to code before now have access to tools to be able to really, transform their job, and all the roles are changing. We don't know how they're going to end up. We've got ideas of where things are going to move and evolve. But I think the best thing that you can do is when people are nervous or worried, like worry is fine, but immerse yourself in it and spend the time to learn. One of the things that I've noticed in coaching many people over the years is making sure people take time to advance their career. It's never someone else's job to drive your career. It is your own. And so if you don't make time to be learning new technology or brushing up on things or whatever it might be, like, it's not your manager's fault. They'll go on to do something else. It's on you. So making sure you have time and prioritize your days and weeks to make sure you're always learning helps. And then I'm sure as soon as you start giving it a go, you'll unlock things that you haven't even thought about. And then that becomes really exciting, but it's nearly like fear of the unknown until you give it a go and put yourself out there and get amongst it. So yes, the roles are changing, but roles are always changing. It's just at a much faster rate now.
What about for you? How is your role changing with AI? And also, How are you making time for upskilling and doing that self-learning yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm taking my own advice for one. And at Zendesk, look, it's a big part of what we're doing at the moment. There's AI that we're building into our products. So one of the big priorities I have at the moment is bringing AI agent capability into our contact center product. So when you ring up and speak to someone, it might be an AI agent rather than a human, and really optimizing that as well. My teams are loving it, right? Like they're getting exposure to technology that they've never been able to necessarily work with. So on the strategic front, like it's obviously how we can transform our product to be a lot more invested in AI. And then the other side of things is on the individual roles. So as a product manager, what do I need to learn? How can I upskill myself and do my job better using and leveraging AI? So one of the big things that we're doing is being able to use AI to transfer all this data that normally would have taken hours and hours and hours, or I would have had to have got an analyst to go and do something for me. I can now do that now. So it's bringing a lot more power, and I'm getting a lot more insight myself really quickly, and it's saving you so much time. And at Zendesk, this is something that we're doing across the whole organization, top to bottom. And look, even our CEO the other day deployed a piece of code with a lot of help, but AI is making everything accessible to so many more people.
Incredible. And on that note, so this is Tech Careers Hotline, and we have a few questions from some listeners, and we've got a question now.
Hi, my name's Tiffany, and I'm an alumna of the Always Space Initiative and a student at St. Vincent's College, Ashfield. My question for Hannah today is, how can AI create opportunities for young women like myself while still preserving meaningful human connection?
Tiffany, that was a fantastic question. How I'd like to think about it is AI can widen the doorway, but people are still in the room, right? So the beauty about this is people don't have to go and spend years studying anymore. Like you've got these fantastic tools at your fingertips. So you're not restricted by anything anymore. But on the other side is you still need humans. Like you're still solving problems for humans. You still need to work with other people, and all those soft skills as well around working with others and leadership still definitely apply. If I was thinking back to myself in my career early days and what I'm seeing now with the availability of AI, there's so much you can do yourself. Like it's nearly the hardest challenge that people have is that there's where do I start and what do I do, right? Rather than being in this little individual pocket.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Hi, Hannah. For people thinking about moving into tech or product management, what's one concrete step that someone could take today?
Try to think of one. One's hard. Look, I think for me, the best thing that I've always seen is to get experience. So don't wait for the best time, get experience. And whether that's a mentor who can help you and give you feedback, whether you can get an internship or work experience, like getting into a company or working with someone that you can learn from will greatly help your career. And it's really important to make mistakes. Like that's how you learn. But I think you don't want to just be learning in a silo. Like you want to be solving real customer problems, working with other people as well. So I think that would be my best advice is actually just putting yourself out there. And it requires you to be brave and being uncomfortable, but actually taking that step and getting your foot in the door. That's where the world's your oyster. And I think back to early times in my career, and I think we were just talking about this before we started this interview, was I had no clue what a product manager was before I started in tech. And it was only about 6 months in that I even knew that there was such a role. And I think sometimes you can get so stuck on, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this study and I'm going to have this role and that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But once you actually get out into the world and into a workforce, you can see that there's so many different roles that we all do. And actually getting in amongst it in whatever way you can is super, super valuable. And it doesn't mean that even if you start as a product manager, you can't go into something else as well. I've seen a lot of people actually come into product management after working in other areas. So as engineers, as customer support agents, from marketing, like if I look at my team today, everyone's got a very varied background. And I think that's what makes product managers really powerful. It's not a one size fits all type of role. There are more technical ones, there are more commercial ones. And so absolutely just taking that step and just trying to get some experience and working with people is my number one.
Great advice. And interviewing people from this podcast, what I notice is that a lot of people who have impressive careers like yourself have like got that practical experience. You know, it's been an internship or it's been a mentor or it's been a job that gave them exposure, and it's that practical application and working with other people has really helped them move beyond the theoretical into the real world.
So I remember when I was doing my study, I was in my last year and I thought I need to just, even if it's not paid, I need some work experience.
Yeah.
And I was actually lucky enough to get a paid role at UNSW, and it opened my eyes. And I met fantastic people who I've worked with in the years to come as well. So definitely taking that step and being confident. And if you don't know what to do, there's so many great mentoring networks out there that people are there to help support as well.
Hannah, what do you think is the best career advice you've ever got over your career?
Oh, goodness. I've had lots of advice. If I think back to like a pivotal moment was I was working for a company as an engineer, and there were two parts to the role. There was more your traditional R&D engineering, and then there was engineering that we did that was more customization, like consulting for customers. And the company I worked for had just been acquired. And when you get acquired by bigger companies, sometimes you have to make a decision about which part you want to work in, because you can't work on everything. It's a bit more specific. And I had this mentor at the time, and I was trying to work out which side of the fence I picked, like both engineering, but which one do I want to go to? And the customer side was more fun. Like it was a bit more dynamic at the time. It was more fun. And the R&D side, it was tough, right? Like it was quite early on in my career. And this mentor said, I think you should go to the R&D side because you're curious, you like solving deep problems. It'll be better for your career. Like I think that's the side you should go. And at the time I was quite torn, and I took that advice, and I definitely wouldn't be in the position I'm in now today. Like that's where the company took off, and I learned more around like SaaS technology came in and working in a software development life cycle. I was definitely at a point in my career where I wouldn't have had the experience to make an educated decision on which path I should take. It was tough. It was like, I didn't pick the fun, easy path. I took the challenging, tough path. And I think that's there's moments throughout my career where I've had that. But I look back now, and that was a pivotal time. And it was the right choice for me.
Yeah. Like a sliding doors moment of like.
It was. It actually gives me like a bit of tingle thinking back to that time, because it was such a big decision. But you have those moments in your career. And look, I still might have ended up in that same pathway. You don't know, but I think it was a crucial point in my career at that time. And having someone who'd been in the industry for 20 years who could see where things were going, I definitely didn't have that experience. And that definitely helped me, having that mentor for me at that time.
Yeah, I think mentors are so, so important in your career, having that person who's had that experience and can see things objectively and a little bit less emotionally. I love that story. All right, let's finish up the last question. So, Hannah, 10 years in the future, what do you think you're going to be working on or thinking about or grappling with?
I want to be solving fantastic customer problems. I want to work with fantastic people in a great culture, working for a company, hopefully still Zendesk, that's on a really fast growth mission, like using new technology, using AI in our roles, and building products that are transforming the world for our customers is where I see myself going. I've worked in product management now for 20 plus years. And it's just this perfect combination of both business and technical and working with people. So I can't imagine not working in this space.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and sharing your career story with us. I know our listeners are going to love it. Thanks so much, Hannah.
Great. Thank you, Adair.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Tech Careers Hotline today. And if you did, please help us out by subscribing, leaving us a review, or even share it with someone who you think might find value from it today. Until next time.